Hello everyone. So I've actually had this tier list idea for quite some time that I haven't been gone into yet. If you might be thinking to yourself, oh, how much time have you had this idea for? Ever since season 4? But you know what? I'm kind of glad I decided to procrastinate a lot because ever since season 4, we've gotten 2 new main trials and 2 new grunts. And the reason why I decided to go with grunts for this tier list instead of like, prime assets or, specialist X-Pops is because whenever you think of like enemies that give you a hard time in Outlast trials, you don't typically think of like the box, standard grunt. Like whenever you think of enemies that give you a hard time, you usually think of like with what I mentioned before, like again, like prime assets where it's like, oh, like Franco or Lily, or like the specialist X pops, like like Pitcher, Night Hunter, Jaeger. But today we aren't looking at just the box standard enemies. We're looking at exceptions. And there's a few of them. Two things I want to say before we really get into this. The reason why I have the tier list formatted like this is because visually I thought it would look way nicer for it to have, fewer tiers, especially with how few grunts I have, as the options. And a disclaimer I want to put is that I'm basing this tier list off of my own personal experience with these grunts, and there might be like 1 or 2 grunts that I've missed out on that like I just didn't think of while making this, or just didn't really have like a super difficult time with them, so I didn't really, consider putting them in here. But with what I picked out with these grunts, these are like the main 9 I would consider to be like Avengers level threats. So without further ado, the first grunt we're going to be talking about is the Program X Vindicate the Guilty Shuttle Grunt. Now, I'm sure most of you who are watching this right now don't even know who this grunt was, or just straight up forgot him. This was the grunt that spawned at the shuttle at the very end of the Vindicate the Guilty final exam on old Program X during like the Geister refresh. And the thing with this grunt, like you could be having the most clean run in the entire world. You could get an amazing acid spawn and like jump the balcony to save some time and get like a good evidence spawn without having to deal with coil at all. You could one cycle both witnesses without having to deal with the big guy or Night Hunter at all. Like you could be having the most perfect run in the entire world, and then whenever you run to the shuttle, this fucking guy spawns and just ends your entire career. And one thing I remember whenever I always ran the final exam, Vindicate the Guilty, old Program X and everything, I always made sure to either save a brick or a stun rig for the grunt that spawns at the very end, because if I didn't, that grunt would give me so much trouble. Interestingly enough, there is a grunt that does spawn at the end on Vindicate, like on higher difficulties, and I could be misremembering something, but I'm like 90% sure the grunt's spawn got changed, because now, like, if you play the trial on, like, Psycho, like, the grunt usually spawns at, like, the ending double doors, while back on the final exam, that grunt was always at the shuttle. Like, they were always in either, like, on the shuttle or, like, crossing the alleyway. This shuttle grunt is what I would consider, like, the first ever, like, Avengers level threat grunt that Outlast Trials has ever seen before, and I would put them solid, like, A tier. Honestly, not S, but like solid A. Alright, next we have the Ultra Pervert Basement Grunt. Every time I say that name, it's so funny. Now, this was the grunt that patrolled the basement tutorial area on, Pervert the Futterman on Program Ultra. I never really played Ultra Pervert, by myself. I only really did it with a squad. But, like, I would hear so many, like, horror stories from my friends whenever they would, like, solo run it. Whenever they talk about it, and I always mention, like, oh, how is it like speedrunning, Ultra Pervert and all this stuff? Like, how hard is it? And they would always mention, dude, the hardest part is dealing with this fuck-ass grunt in the basement. And one thing that I vividly remember is that one of the first times I've ever played, Ultra Pervert by myself is whenever Toxic Shock update dropped. And on the program list for Toxic Shock, it had Ultra Pervert, at the very bottom as like the final one. And back then I remember I was like, you know what, why not? This is like one of my first times ever playing, Ultra Pervert, solo, like by myself. Like, I'll try it with Toxic Shock. I'll see how it goes and all that stuff. Oh my god, that basement grunt. I had to reset twice. And those were the only 2 times I ever had to reset for, that, like, Toxic Shock, Ultra Pervert, like, runs that I did. Those are the only 2 times I had to reset. It was because of this grunt and that grunt alone. This basement grunt still, patrols the tutorial basement, for Pervert the Futterman. And I don't think they really changed the spawns that much. I think for Program Ultra, like, I swear the grunt spawned earlier, but, like, I could be tripping. And I think, again, like, the spawns are the exact same on, like, higher difficulty, like, Psycho and everything. So this grunt is still, mostly present and can still very much be a problem. So I would say it's probably, like, that, I would say, like, A tier, but, like, above the Shuttle Grunt, I would say. I could already tell I'm gonna have a fun time talking about this next grunt. Okay, the cocaine grunt. Where do I even begin? I guess I'll just talk about poison medicine in general. Now, the cocaine grunt is the enemy that patrols the Chemco lab area in poison the medicine. And the thing about poison the medicine is that there is so much back and forth. Oh my goodness. You know, first you start up the trial to do Franco's little introduction, and then you run over to Chemco. Then you push the cart over to Train Depot, and then you push it back to Chemco. You do the rest of the coker part, and then you do the tutorial poison, which makes you spend more time in Chemco, and then you run to get the other poisons, and then you run back to Chemco, and then after that's done, you start to grab the packets to start the finale, and then if you need to get more packets, you have to run back to Chemco. Like with poison the medicine, there is so much back and forth that like Chemco is essentially like your quote-unquote like headquarters. Like you always report back to it, you always go back to like, you know, put the objectives, you always, you know, do all that stuff. So it would be a real shame if there happens to be an enemy that patrols that 24/7. With how Chemco is designed on that trial is that you have this big open light area, which is like, again, like where the main cooker is at, and you have what I would consider 3 main dark areas, with the main one being where you deposit the drugs back and forth, with it being blocked off by the turnstile. That's being connected by 2 really tight hallways. The cocaine grunt patrols that entire area. Like, if you're in the big open light area with room, the cocaine grunt can see you since you're in the light and is going to chase you. If you're in the dark, tight area, you don't have that much room to work with, and then if you get close to the cocaine grunt will get you. And having to do a cart section with Chemco is that whenever you push the cart, obviously it's going to make noise, and just when you think you're safe from the grunt, they can access the double doors if they happen to be close enough to the track of you pushing the cart, and just mess up everything. And to top it all off, whenever you actually make the packets themselves, you have to, you know, use the big crank in order to do it, which number 1, it makes a ton of noise, which will attract the grunt over to you, and number 2, you're stationary the entire time whenever you're actually cranking, which makes you like the biggest sitting duck in the entire world for the cocaine grunt to just smack you. This grunt will run to the ends of the earth in order to make sure that you, yes you, can't smuggle Franco's drugs. And I think that this grunt is such a big deal to the point where they can even be a problem on intro. Like, when we're discussing all these grunts and everything, obviously, you're mostly gonna find them on, like, the higher difficulties and everything. If you play on, like, the lower difficulties, then, like, maybe, you know, sometimes they don't even spawn in general, or they just spawn super late, where they're not that much of a problem. But with the cocaine grunt, them spawning late isn't an issue at all, because, again, with so much back and forth that poison the medicine has, you're just gonna eventually run into the grunt, even on intro. I genuinely think that the cocaine grunt is one of, if not the only enemy in this entire game that's actually able to give you a hard time on intro. Easy S tier. Easy S tier. What do I even say? You know what? No. I have a better idea. Boom. That's even better. Look at this. Alright, next we have... The money grunt is the enemy that, like, patrols essentially, like, the entire area of Traffic the Product. If you are a knower when it comes to Traffic the Product, this grunt's name used to be the Motel Grunt, because they would only really patrol that area near the van whenever you try to, again, like, deposit the money to, you know, complete the objective and get out. So now I'm gonna rebrand this grunt. This grunt's name is now the Money Grunt, because he's always near the cart and wants to bully you and steal your lunch money. But what makes the money grunt a huge problem is, again, like, Traffic is essentially, like, a huge, open, like, light area. And similar to poison the medicine, you have like one big cart section that, again, like number 1 makes a lot of noise, and number 2, whenever you actually have to deposit the drugs, again, you have to do it like one at a time with the rotator. And again, with the money grunt like patrolling like the entire map, they can just hear you whenever you're pushing the cart, so they'll go to you. They can just see you whenever you're pushing the cart, they'll just go to you. Whenever you go to the actual areas you need to get, they can just be there and just screw you up. And they can put on a good chase, even like chasing you to like upstairs areas sometimes. I would say that Franco is still the biggest threat when it comes to Traffic, because, again, similar to this grunt, he patrols like the entire area, and again, he can be a huge problem when he's like patrolling and camping the van, and plus, again, he's just Franco, so. But the money grunt is 100% a contender when it comes to this tier list. I would say like here, like right above Ultra Pervert Basement Grunt, like high A, like high A, I would say, not quite S. Okay, this next grunt might be a cult classic, I'm not even gonna lie. So the Mansion Grunt is the enemy that patrols, you guessed it, the mansion for Liquidate the Union. And let's just get one thing out of the way real quick. I just want to make it like a baseline to make sure we're all on the same page. Liquidate the Union, hardest base trial in the entire game, period. Well, let's just be honest with each other. And I would honestly say, you know, like speaking from, you know, personal experience, that like most of the trouble I've gotten from, you know, the Mansion Grunt was from this one unknown custom trial, like this one really like underrated tame I don't think anybody knew the name of it. Like I don't think any of you guys have heard of it before. It's pretty like again like it's pretty underrated. Like not that many people know about it. Like no, but this grunt was moving like crazy back in OG Kill the Room, dude. Oh my goodness. What makes this grunt such a big problem is that the entire mansion area where you have to do like again like the whole like blacklight puzzle to like free the union boss from like the little shelter he's in, is that the entire area is fully lit up. The whole thing is lit up, and unlike Vindicate the Guilty where again the blacklight puzzle is just in that one specific room and you have to like find all the codes and again like just that one room, with Liquidate you get 3 other rooms you have to go to and you have to search around like the whole mansion in order to find them. And with the actual union boss himself, escorting him to the factory makes so much noise, and again can even see you exiting the mansion and can even chase you into the neighborhood. And that's assuming that you're leading the union boss at the start of the trial, because if you didn't start escorting the union boss and are only starting that after you're completing slums, you have the potential to run into the mansion grunt again on this trial. I will say one thing though, when it comes to like the motion sensor objectives that are in suburbs, you can use that objective to body block the grunt a lot and just again like try to keep them off you. But if the grunt happens to be that close to you to begin with whenever you're starting to escort, then they're just going to give you a ton of trouble. Now, where would I place the mansion grunt, though? Or is the mansion grunt even worse than the money grunt? Money grunt definitely chases you way more, but I feel like with mansion, you have to deal with mansion grunt a lot, though. And plus, it's on Liquidate. I would say, like, high A. I would say mansion grunt's, like, the highest of A. I don't think it's quite S tier, but it's damn near close though. Alright, similar to Mansion, this next grunt might also be someone you might know already. Such amazing memories I have with this creature. Now, the voting grunt is the enemy that patrols like the main school area for, get out the vote. And the thing about that is that I just fucking lied to you, because not only are they in Get Out the Vote, they're also in Disrupt the Neighborhood and also on Eliminate the Legacy. This one enemy that patrols the main school area on every single suburbs MK is also a problem. What makes the voting grunt a big problem on number 1 Get Out the Vote is because, kind of similar to the Mansion grunt, you have to do like an escort motion sensor objective, which again creates a ton of noise and will just lead the grunt over to you. The school area in general for the suburbs MK are pretty small and compact, and with how Get Out the Vote works in the beginning is that even if you wanted to try to just like run away into the neighborhood and just no longer deal with the grunt, you physically cannot. You have to lead the candidate over to the gate in order to open it again to begin with. And on a lot of cases, the voting grunt can just follow you into the neighborhood a lot of times. And after you're done committing voter fraud and you have all the tickets and you're leading the candidate back to the school, since you're going back into the school, again, the voting grunt is still just gonna be there. And for Disrupt the Neighborhood, it reuses the same like radio mechanic as, Liquidate the Union, but it also uses the limited time, black light generators. And with the generator that you have to power on in the school, it is right smack dab in the middle. And with Eliminate the Legacy, kind of similar to Get Out the Vote, where again, you have gates where it separates the neighborhood and school, so you're stuck in the school until you complete the objective, and the hearts that you have to refill on is right in the middle. And getting unlucky with searching for your targets on Eliminate can take so long. And one thing I find so funny about this tier list, by the way, is the fact that every single suburbs, thing in general is on here. Liquidate's on here, like the main trial, and then you have the voting grunt, which is on every single suburbs MK so far. Oh, you're joking. I can't believe my eyes. All of suburbs on this tier list at the same time. Easy S tier. Easy, no contest, easy. Okay, I've talked about before about how like annoying Cocaine Grunt is, for how like, again, like they're always in your way 24/7. Actually, fuck this guy. So the Employees Only grunt is the enemy that patrols the Employees Only sections for the main trial, Kill the Politician, for Shopping Mall. And all of the Employees Only sections are essentially just like one big hallway with very little wiggle room if the grunt happens to patrol to you. And I've already said this before on, past videos, but the math pipes are like one of the few objectives in this game where you have to really sit there and think like, okay, do I have to subtract? Do I have to add? Okay, I have to add. Okay, let me look at the numbers. Okay, I have to add that. Okay, this is my goal. And while while you're thinking about what you need to do, for a couple seconds, that can give the employees only grunt enough time to just walk over to you. And whenever you are actually turning the pipes and everything, they make noise which will lead the grunt again over to you. And one moment I remember during like 100 Escalation Part 2 was like whenever we were on shopping mall and I was like heading towards, I think like the pet shop, the employees only grunt literally walked out of the door at the exact same time I was heading in. Like, now, the real question, where do I put them on the tier list? I know I said it in the beginning when describing them, it's like, if they're in your way, it can be like cocaine grunt and all that stuff, but like, honestly, I might go B tier, because I'm just thinking about like the tier list and like ranking and like judging everything, and it's like, are they worse than Shuttle, Basement, Money, and Mansion grunt? No. Are they worse than the voting grunt? No. Are they worse than cocaine? Definitely not. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're still annoying. They're definitely on this tier list for a reason. Like, I would still consider employees only grunt to be, one of the main 9 I picked out, but it's like, comparing employees only to like every other grunt that I have on the tier list so far, I would say like B. I think that's fair. Alright, similar to Mansion Grunt, you might already know who this is. So, the Winter Grunt, also known as the Upstairs Frost Grunt, that's what I like to call them sometimes, is the main enemy that patrols the Upstairs Frost area for the main trial to spoil the auction. Again, similar with Mansion Grunt, I would say from like personal experience, most of the trouble that I've had with Winter Grunt is from, again, like a fairly unknown custom trial, like no one has ever heard of it before. I remember Winter Grunt was giving me so much trouble whenever like I first played like Entertain the Corpses. I felt like every single time I had to go to the area to either open up like, like the Frost Bear or Frost Wolf, or just like, in general get like the Frost, disarms to like, even get the Wolf Key to begin with. I felt like every single time I went into that area, the Winter Grunt was always just there, just like looking at me, just watching me. And the thing with Winter Grunt is that they don't only just patrol the Frost area, they can also patrol like the main, like, how do you call it, like lobby section of upstairs where like the Wolf Key is at. They can also patrol like the outside part of the area too. Like, they aren't fully restricted to just the Frost area. Like, they can also just move out too, which is like why do you hate me? Like, why? And since it is a Frost area, again, you want to power on the generator to not take any freezing damage, which makes a lot of noise, and 8 times out of 10 the Winter Grunt is just gonna hear you and immediately beeline towards your location. And having to deal with that grunt on Entertain the Corpses, especially with, no running plus bleeding, dealing with the Winter Grunt was like such a hassle, like it was such a pain. But speaking of Entertain the Corpses, back when I played that with like, Fright, Dash, and Ocean, the Winter Grunt really reminds me of this one moment that happened. And Ocean, if you just so happen to be watching this video, it really sucks how like we both ran away from that Winter Grunt and how we both hit that Psychosis Mine in the Frost area. Like, it was really unfortunate how like we both decided to like land in that together as a team. No, but I seriously think that was like one of the funniest moments that happened during like that entire like compilation of attempts that again like we had for for that custom trail, where it's like I hit the Psychosis Mine and then I also hit Ocean in that too, and then I fucking died. Now I'm really thinking if Winter Grunt is an S tier though. I say yeah. Yeah, because I'm just thinking about it now. Like, I would consider Mansion Grunt to be like the highest of A tier, and for Winter Grunt to be an S, I would say like it would have to be worse than Mansion, and I do think that's the case. Like, the Frost area, they patrol's way smaller than the Mansion, so I feel like you're gonna see them a lot more. You're on a constant timer with the warmth, so you do have to speed things up, which can definitely screw you over. You also have to make a ton of noise in order to like be in that area again to begin with. Winter is also an armored grunt at the same time with Mansion, and Winter can also just naturally patrol out of the area. Like, they're not just restricted in the Frost area. Yeah, I think this is a good spot for Winter, honestly. Alright, is everyone ready? We're saving the best for last. We're now finally gonna talk about the... I guess kind of similar to Cocaine Grunt, I can just talk about, like, its map in general. TV Studio. What do you do in TV Studio? Oh, I have to do these puzzles in the studios. Okay, cool. We have this grunt that patrols the entire fucking map. Okay, Studio Grunt doesn't actually patrol the entire map. They patrol, like, the main, again, like, studios on, like, the first floor. They don't go upstairs or whatever, and I'm pretty sure they do despawn after you complete Studio 3, so they don't show up at the finale and everything at Studio 4. But, oh my goodness. Dread it. run from it, destiny still arrives. Like, and I know I've already made this joke many times in the past where I'm like, oh, this enemy was actually the, fourth prime asset before, yada yada. The studio grunt is literally the prime asset for Silence the Idol, straight up. They just are. And that's because the Crust Twins are the definition of John and Jane nothing when it comes to Silence the Idol. This grunt essentially patrols like the entire first floor, and like you cannot escape them. They're like, oh, they're always gonna find you. It's like, even if you're doing a puzzle, they're gonna find you. Even if you're doing like the blacklight thing, they're gonna find you. They always go into every single studio just to get you. Yes, you. The thing with Cocaine Grunt is like, okay, and how, Chemco is designed and how much back and forth, poison and medicine has. You're gonna be seeing the Cocaine Grunt a lot, and, that can lead to a lot of issues, or like, or like the Grunt just gives you a ton of trouble. While Studio Grunt literally carries the entire difficulty of a main trial. And I know just the perfect spot for them. I made the Studio Grunt tier purple because, insert Afton burning. That's what it's like going up against this grunt. So this is my tier list on the most annoying grunts. Comment below if you disagree or agree, or think that I left out a couple here and there. But I just wanted to say thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see all of you later.